2. As soon as she was inside her room, Mabel shut the door. Unlike her older brother, Mabel didn't keep her money in her sock drawer. She didn't even have a sock drawer. It was more like she had a clothes shelf. When her dresser had broken years earlier, her mother had never replaced it. Mabel guessed this was because large pieces of furniture were difficult for her mother to steal. When Katie Mandal had brought home a plastic-wrapped package of foldable cloth storage boxes, Mabel assumed her mother had lifted them off of the shelves at Target. Or maybe she'd ordered them online and then issued a chargeback on her credit card, a trick she demonstrated to Mabel when she was just 5 years old. Mabel thought about her mother's kleptomania every time she used the boxes, and she didn't like to think about it, so she tossed things in the boxes she rarely needed and kept her clean clothes on a bookshelf instead. Because her mother had a problem with taking things that weren't hers, Mabel kept her money in the safest place she could think of, the false bottom of an empty piggy bank. Mabel had figured out this one simple trick thanks to the help of her friend, Fernanda. That girl was always coming up with clever inventions. Mabel popped the false bottom off of the smiling pig and pulled out a wad of cash. She added the $5 from Sivan and $10 from Mrs. Grace to a bundle of ones. She had $42 total. Mabel was scheduled to watch Baby Ben every Tuesday and Thursday. That was 3 $10 sessions left before Halloween, so $30 plus $42. It would be enough for one ticket to Torture Town with $7 left over. Mabel folded up the money and placed it back in the piggy bank's false bottom. Then she whipped her phone out of her back pocket and started over where she'd left off. There was no set amount for the cost of a fake driver's license, but from what Mabel could gather, she could expect to spend around $100. She whistled. That was 10 hours worth of babysitting gigs. Mabel turned off her phone and set it on her bookshelf. 10 hours. Maybe Mabel could convince Mrs. Grace to take her wife on a very long date night? And what about her friends? Mabel's friend group consisted of Archer Abel, Fernanda Flores, and Suki Sato. None of them was rich. She wondered if they would have enough money to go. If not, Mabel was determined to help them out any way she could. Mabel burst out of her room, set to cross the street, and ask Mrs. Grace for more jobs, or at least a few referrals, when she stopped in her tracks halfway down the stairs and pulled back, hiding in the shadows. At the bottom of the stairs, Sivan stood in the front doorway, his body blocking the person standing outside. Mabel recognized the voice. It was Mrs. Grace. And she didn't sound happy. "Tell your mom I'm sorry," Mrs. Grace was saying. "But I just can't have Mabel over to sit Ben anymore. She isn't cut out for childcare." "I understand," Sivan said. "I know your family has fallen on hard times since your father passed," Mrs. Grace continued. "Arjun was such a wonderful man. It's just awful what happened. And Sarah and I want to help. We really do. But it's okay," Sivan insisted, cutting her off. Mabel knew he hated these platitudes from adults as much as she did. "I'll let my mom know." "Tell Katie I said hello, and if she needs anything, I will." "How about you take this?" Mabel couldn't see what Mrs. Grace was offering, but she knew. It was food and money. "It's okay, really," Sivan argued. "We're fine, Mrs. Grace. You don't have to keep bringing us things." "It's no big deal, and I made extra." Sivan grabbed whatever she handed him, something heavy. Mabel guessed soup. It was so patronizing. It filled her with rage. They said their goodbyes, and Sivan shut the door. Mabel practically jumped down the stairs. When she thudded onto the landing, Sivan flinched so hard, he dropped the dark blue ceramic crock. It smashed on the tile entry floor, and chunks of stew went flying. A mushy potato hit Mabel in the face. "Mabel!" Sivan yelled. "What the? That's not our pot! Now I'm going to have to get her a new one." He walked through the mess towards the kitchen at the rear of the house, leaving puke-colored streaks on the floor as he went. As he pulled a mop and bucket from the pantry, Mabel followed, grousing. "Not cut out for childcare? Can you believe the nerve of that bee?" "Mabel, don't," Sivan growled, filling the bucket with soapy water. "I don't have the energy for this right now." "Do you think this means she doesn't want me to babysit on Thursday?" "Of course it means that!" Sivan yelled. "Geez, Mabel, get a clue." "Oh, but I really need that money, Sivan." "Well, maybe if you acted more maturely, you wouldn't have lost your job." Mabel's mouth fell open, but she didn't have a comeback at the ready. Sivan shoved past her and went back to the entryway where he began to sop up the soup, forming a pile of chunky bits in the center of the room. She left him to finish up the job. Not cut out for childcare. As if, she thought, as she stomped up the stairs. Mabel was good with kids. Baby Ben was the problem. He was smart. Too smart for his own mom. Luckily, Mabel was smart too. Slamming her bedroom door behind her, Mabel stormed over to her laptop. Actually, one of her mom's old laptops. And her mom's Facebook account was still logged in to the old, sad social media website. Mabel immediately set about making a new business page. Category? Childcare. Then she went back to Google. How do you make fake Facebook reviews? Reddit results suggested it was possible, but the fastest, easiest way was to pay someone. Someone on a freelancing site was charging $1 per review. That seemed reasonable. Mabel figured she only needed 5 to 10 reviews to make it seem like she was the best babysitter in the world. I guess it really does take money to make money, Mabel thought. As she filled out the request form, she prayed her mom's saved credit card wasn't maxed out. She could always pay her back later,